Is that are we rolling right now? Is this happening? My apologies to everyone out there. I want to approach all of these shows with the utmost of professionalism, but I was just bonding with these people that I've not seen much of in the past 5 months, and it's heartwarming to almost see them. They're both, again, wearing black masks. It could be anyone. They could have been replaced by cheap Chinese knockoffs. Welcome to A Late Show. I'm Stephen Colbert. Huge news yesterday that shook the political world. I'm talking, of course, about the Connecticut presidential primary. Let's get right to our ongoing coverage.
The Late Show presents the 2020 party primaries, the local access street, to the on-ramp, to the road, to the White House. Connecticut, the nutmeg state. Grate some democracy on your electoral nog. 2020.
The results are in, and with 53% of precincts reporting, The Late Show is ready to project that Joe Biden has won the Connecticut primary with a commanding 84% of the vote. Bernie Sanders put up a good fight, but ultimately could not overcome the fact that he dropped out of the race in April. Let's go over here. One person who's got to be happy with Biden's win is his new running mate, Kamala Harris. Today, they appeared together for the first time in Delaware at Greenville's A.I. DuPont High School, where they presented a pretty impressive What I Did Over Summer Vacation. Now, because of COVID quarantine, the event took place in an empty auditorium. And though there was no audience, it was attended by every flag in the known world. It was a warm and energetic launch to their campaign, but when Biden took the stage, Joe did not pull any punches, especially when it came to Trump attacking his running mate.
Donald Trump has already started his attacks, calling Kamala, quote, nasty, whining about how she is, quote, mean to his appointees. It's no surprise, because whining is what Donald Trump does best.
That's not true, Joe. Whining isn't what I do best. Slowly destroying our democratic institutions from the inside is what I do best. Well, that and sucking down a bucket of wings. Biden explained just why he picked Harris.
One of the reasons I chose Kamala is because we both believe that we can define America simply in one word.
Is it crunchy? Is it salty? I'm sorry, I'm thinking about the wings. Go ahead.
Possibilities. Possibilities. Let me say it again.
Okay, I mean, I heard you the first 2 times, but if you have to.
Possibilities. That's America.
I think I know what happened here. You want to say hope, but you can't say hope because Obama already licked the hope donut. So, you had to break out the thesaurus, didn't you? Everybody get ready to go from hope and change to possibilities and transmogrification. Now, Biden made it clear he was fed up with Trump passing the buck.
As an old saying goes, give me a break.
As my dad used to say, Joe, give me a break. Give me a break. Break me off a piece of that American possibilities. Now, Barack Obama, you remember him. Obama always said that Joe Biden was the final person he consulted in any decision. And Biden said he wanted the same thing for his vice president.
I asked Kamala to be the last voice in the room.
In contrast to Mike Pence, who has no voice in the room because it's really hard to talk with your lips planted firmly on your boss's butt. Finally, it was time for the woman of the hour, Kamala Harris, and the senator reminded everyone of what is at stake in this election.
In just 83 days, we have a chance to choose a better future for our country.
Yes, 83 days until the election, which in Corona time is, I think, 3 showers. Three showers. Harris then drew upon her history as a prosecutor.
As somebody who has presented my fair share of arguments in court, the case against Donald Trump and Mike Pence is open and shut.
Oh my God, please prosecute them. Throw the book at them, a literal book, or a book of stamps, or just a pamphlet. I have to see some kind of consequences. And Harris unleashed this zinger on the president.
He inherited the longest economic expansion in history from Barack Obama and Joe Biden. And then, like everything else he inherited, he ran it straight into the ground.
Ran it into the ground. This is Donald Trump we're talking about here, Senator. At best, he golf carted it into the ground. Now, the celebrations ended with some awkward waving at nobody and standing around imagining what the sounds of a crowd would be like. It's a feeling I've come to know all too well. Thank you. Thank you. Please sit down. You got to stop chanting my name. There's so much more show to thank you. Thank you. Biden's selection of Senator Harris is an historic first in multiple respects. She's the first black woman and the first person of Indian descent to be nominated for national office by a major party. But she's not the first woman to run for vice president, and she got some advice from one of her predecessors, former Alaskan Governor Sarah Palin, seen here as far as I care. Last night, Palin took to Instagram and advised Harris to trust no one new. Okay, but technically for Harris, Palin is someone new. So is she saying, don't trust Sarah Palin? That is good advice. Now, in addition to potentially attracting women and minority voters, Harris clicks with some big money donors too, because apparently Wall Street is happy, Silicon Valley is happy, and Hollywood is fired up. Finally, a candidate who speaks to the heartland. Now, I've had Senator Harris on the show 5 times, always impressed with her, and I'm happy she's gotten this historic opportunity. But I have one small beef with the senator. She is 5 months younger than I am. That is not going to sit well with certain me's. Hopefully, in the general election, she'll be smart enough to pivot toward being just slightly older than I am. One person who was not thrilled with Biden's choice is his opponent, Donald Trump. Yesterday, the president reacted to the Harris announcement, and his criticism had a familiar ring to it.
She was extraordinarily nasty. She was nasty to a level that was just a horrible thing. She was probably nastier. She was very, very nasty.
Oh, my God. How lazy are you? You're just repeating what you said about Hillary. You're stuck in 2016, and that's not fair. Why should you be the only one who gets to live in a time when you're not president? One person Trump thinks Harris was particularly nasty to is her new running mate.
She said things during the debates, during the Democrat primary debates, that were horrible about Sleepy Joe, and I would think that he wouldn't have picked.
It is true. During the debates, Kamala Harris spanked Biden, and Trump would never work with a woman who did that to him for free. Now, Trump's campaign has experimented with calling her phony Kamala, but apparently President Trump is still workshopping effective nicknames. What a wonderful use of the commander-in-chief's time. Mr. President, the coronavirus numbers, now, I'm making up a new page in my burn book. Mr. President, hundreds of thousands of people are dying. Kamala Harris, Kamala Harris. How about chlamydia butt Harris? Bingo, hand me that glitter glue. A reporter asked Trump whether Senator Harris is going to help Biden's chances, and Trump said this.
Well, I like Vice President Mike Pence much better. He is solid as a rock.
Well, he's definitely something as a rock.
Sedimentary slam!
Trump continued with his praise of Pence.
He's respected by every religious group.
Every religious group. Trump said it, so it must be true. Ladies and gentlemen, Mike Pence is the official candidate of the Taliban. Pence to America! They also won't be alone with women. Trump continued slamming Kamala Harris last night in a phone call with the Fox News.
A lot of people think it's a dangerous choice. I think, she's the most liberal person supposedly in the Senate. That's pretty liberal, but she's supposed to be the most. I'm not sure that's what the country wants. I think if it is, we've got problems, but I would be surprised if it is.
What is he talking about? Harris is an establishment Democrat and a former prosecutor. It is so clear that Trump had a different set of opponents in mind, and now he's having trouble changing strategies. Kamala Harris is a socialist. She's Pocahontas. She's Poca Harris. Also, the internet is full of toxic Biden bros. Quick, please someone tell me she had an email server. Maybe one reason why Trump is struggling to go after Kamala Harris is that his heart's not in it because, and this is true, when she was running for Attorney General in California, Trump donated to Kamala Harris's campaigns twice. Wow, that is embarrassing for Kamala Harris. And Donald's not the only Trump who supported Harris in the past because Ivanka Trump also donated $2,000 to Harris in 2014, which is surprising. Usually when Ivanka gives women money, it's 3 cents a handbag. But there's an additional, even stranger, clearly misogynist attack on Kamala Harris. Because, see, the new Trump campaign playbook paints Harris as power-hungry and overly ambitious. Of course she's ambitious. She's running for vice president. Who does that without ambition? Yeah, I'm running for vice president. I kind of fell into it. It was a toss-up between being the second most powerful person in the world and really getting into home brewing. With Harris locked in as Biden's VP, Trump is more desperate than ever to appeal to women, especially suburban women. But it's not working. 66% of suburban women disapprove of the job Trump is doing, which can only mean one thing. Trump has been putting his yard clippings in the bin clearly marked recycling. They won't pick it up. You have to put it in the biodegradable bags. So today, Trump did some Twitter outreach posting, "The suburban housewife will be voting for me. They want safety and are thrilled that I ended the long-running program where low-income housing would invade their neighborhood." Congratulations, Mr. President. You managed to be misogynistic and racist in the same tweet. Did you type that from the bathroom or from the 1950s? The suburban housewife loves me as much as she loves frilly aprons, putting pineapple slices on ham, Perry Como, and vacuuming to Pat Boone covers of that dangerous criminal Little Richard. Tutti Frutti, oh Rudy, Tutti Frutti, Julie. I wouldn't be too confident that Trump, you're laughing that joke didn't work. That's not a laugh of you enjoying a joke. That's a laugh at me. You're laughing at me. Don't take that. Do not take out this exchange. The American people need to see the honesty of what COVID has done to our relationship. I wouldn't be too confident that Trump has the suburban housewife vote, by the way. I'm not sure he has the white housewife vote. We've got a great show for you tonight, no matter what he thinks. White House correspondent April Ryan is here, and America's sweetheart Jason Sudeikis joins us. But when we come back, more monologue, because Donald Trump also held some events today. Yeah.